Battle with King and CJ with King.
You want to go get a hot dog at halftime? Well, guess what? You can also take the under in the second half of 25. You know what I mean?
And CJ.
You know, you can win Super Bowls right now with me and Grandpa Brady over here. You know, let's do it that way.
Presented by the fine students and faculty of the Oklahoma State University School of Media and Strategic Communications in beautiful Paul Miller Building. Broadcast live on KXZY, OSU Student Radio. And now, live from Studio 318, it's Border Battle with Jordan, the Great King, and CJ, the Viking Notch.
Welcome back into Studio 318. Here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building at Oklahoma State University, you're listening to the Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXZY, Sunlink 112, YouTube Live, Border Battle On Demand, Facebook.com/Border Battle Show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, that's Twitter.com/Border Battle OSU. We're pre-recording this Wednesday morning, 9:01. We had to roll out of bed a little earlier this morning, Chris, and still broadcasting at the normal time per usual. I want to get to a couple scores from last night that I think are kind of interesting, and then maybe throw some shade at our Sunday guest or Monday guest, Cam Jordan. His Nashville Predators gave up a touchdown and an extra point to the Winnipeg Jets, lose 4-7 yesterday. They were up 3-0 in that game. Winnipeg ends up coming all the way back, winning that one. Washington, the Capitals, also beat the Pittsburgh Penguins on the road. They take a 2-1 series lead in that series as well. So a couple big hockey scores from last night. I know we don't talk much hockey. Neither of us have the expertise in it to do so, but those are some big-time scores.
Yeah, which is crazy that we're not hockey expertise when we're from hockey states. But that's right. I do want to say, too, you know, listening to Landon, it made me think, you know, if I was ever like a wrestler, like WWE, I want Landon being like my announcing guy that comes on right before I come out.
You're going to try to get Landon a job.
Yeah.
Well, you're not.
Just
I don't
being
think
that guy. I mean, I'm not going into wrestling.
Yeah, Landon,
but,
don't quit your day job.
Yeah,
Chris isn't getting into wrestling.
That ain't happening, but.
All right. We're going to talk about Baker Mayfield today a little bit. We're talking about MLB. This is our last true content show that we're doing. We're going to do Friday, but Friday will be kind of a look back, appreciation on where we've come, where this program is headed, where we think the sports talk radio aspect of this program is headed. I think obviously people saw Sunday night with Reed and Logan that it's got a bright future nonetheless. We'll talk some NBA playoffs, MLB. We'll talk kind of the rest of those seasons because we want to kind of give our final thoughts on those things, talk about Baker Mayfield a little bit, some more of the NFL draft. But we're going to start with an Orange update. Oklahoma State University baseball will start with Chris. They lost last night to Oral Roberts again. What is it with weekday games in this team? If it's not in Big 12 play, they really struggle. They fall to like 27-15 or so and won. I believe they still have that tie. So what is it with weekday games in this team?
Part of it, I don't know if it's a rhythm thing or what, but also like what's with them when they play ORU? Like I think they're like 0-6 in the past 2 years now or something like that against ORU, and like last night, in a sense, I mean we could have potentially won. It was unfortunate bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth that we didn't get the tying run across, but
yeah, Kroon gets thrown out on a Colin Simpson double. He tried to score from first. And then John Littell struck out swinging, I believe, was the way that game ended. So had some chances late. Obviously, a 5-run seventh inning gets you back into it. But when you spot the other team 6 runs early in the game, you can't expect to come back and win those. Unfortunately, it's the first hiccup from pitching that we've seen in a while because over the course of the OU series, going back to Kansas, going back to earlier in the season with some of these conference series, the pitching's been well, and it's continued to do so in conference play. But as soon as you get out of conference, they've really struggled here recently. So we'll see the bats stay hot, but it's not looking good from a non-conference point of view.
Yeah, that, and it's also funny because before this loss to ORU, our last loss was to ORU.
There you go.
Like, yeah.
Men's team against ORU, women's team against women's softball against Tulsa. Yeah. Tulsa swept them, and I believe now has something like a 4-game winning streak against Oklahoma State. Cowgirl softball you look at all of that, and it's a little disappointing because those are probably wins that you should get. Now, I will say this: there's a lot of baseball and softball talent in this state, and if they want to stay home, those are the teams that they're going to. They're going to ORU, they're going to Tulsa if they don't get an offer from OU or OSU. So I will say it's not like these teams are just lay down teams. You still have to play well to beat them, and that's been evident this season. Speaking of Cowgirl softball, what is your confidence scale on a scale of 1 to 10 that they win the Big 12? You can use negatives if you want.
I'm not confident just because they'd have to sweep OU. And I know this isn't a total fair analysis, but I feel it's a decent as like how they did against UCLA. Granted, it was out in California and whatever,
traveling.
but it's still I mean you got spanked by UCLA in both games, and then having to come home and now you have to sweep. Or when you're here in Stillwater and then in Norman twice as well, you have to sweep. I don't see it happening. I don't, because I think OU is right up there with UCLA as one of the best right now in the country. So if you play like that against UCLA and then you come home and do the same against OU, you're going to get the same result. You can't expect to win if you're going to play like you did.
You can make a legitimate case that OU should still be the number one team in the country. A strong case that, in fact, that they should still be the number one team in the country. I understand that at this point in the season, it's nice to say you have a shot. And for Coach Kenny Gajewski, where he has this program, last year they had a shot to win the Big 12. This year they have a shot to win the Big 12. And the teams are only getting stronger and more cohesive and better, that pretty soon you're going to see them really start challenging OU on a yearly basis. We may already be there. OSU may already be there to the point where, this isn't OU's state anymore. Now, it's going to be for the foreseeable future because of the tradition and the recent history that OU has. But I will say this, the way the trajectory of this program is on under Kenny Gajewski, you have to be thrilled if you're a supporter of Oklahoma State.
For sure. Another thing though, and I don't know if you feel the same way with this, but I think what would make me nervous is how they do against OU, because I think if you don't win, I think you have to win at least 2 or 3 to really I feel like if you get swept by OU, it makes me nervous how they do going into like the Big 12 softball championship. Don't get me wrong, they're a team that can turn the switch on at any time, but it's one of those things of I don't know how comfortable a person would feel if you're going into the postseason on I guess it'd be a 4-game slide.
Yeah, I understand that. It's a little different if your 4-game slide is against the top, 4 games against
Right.
the top 3 teams in the country. I think there's a little bit of a difference there. But again, this is where you can start to, make a claim that you're not so far behind OU. And we'll see if they can. I don't think it's huge to win the Big 12 this year. But what this should teach, what the teaching moment is, in my opinion, for Coach Gajewski for this team, is when you go down to Texas Tech, who's not good, you got to get 3. When you're playing here against Iowa State, who's a middle of the pack, maybe below average team, you got to get 3. Absolutely at home. You want to lose one in Lubbock, fine. You got to get 3 at home against a team like Iowa State. If you get a couple of those wins that you dropped that you should not have dropped, I understand losing in Austin. Getting 2 out of 3 down there is huge. But if you're going to drop games you shouldn't drop, you can't expect to win the conference. You just, that's the way it is. So haven't put themselves quite in the best position for this weekend, but they still have a chance. And when you break it down like that, you have to feel pretty excited if you're the Cowgirl softball team. Cowboy tennis misses out on a top 16 seed. They won't host. They're headed out to, I believe, USC to play
the University of Missouri, Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah, something like that. And right, I think that's a 5th straight NCAA bid for them. So they didn't get the hosting, but they're going to the NCAA tournament. Cowgirls, however, did get to host. This will be the 4th straight time they host. Now, we probably should have brought a tennis beat writer on here. Probably should have had like Cam Jordan or someone on. But I will say this. I'm sure even in tennis, it's a big deal to be playing on your home court.
Yeah, and I apologize. I got it mixed around. Men's plays Harvard. And then women play University of Missouri, Kansas City here. So.
Yep. So, I mean, again, I'm not really sure. I don't know what the advantage is to having home court other than, Oklahoma State fans pack their home arena. It's an actual sport here, where I think at some other places they maybe don't have quite that support for the men's and women's softball team. But obviously, you go out to California, you're going to try to upset a couple there. They might be the higher seed against Harvard, but still, it would have been nice to host. All right. One other thing I wanted to touch on is Cowboy Golf. This is, again, one of our last content shows, so I want to touch on Cowboy Golf because, again, I think the 24th through the 30th, it will be at Karsten Creek, the national championships. They lose against OU. They're not able to finish that out in the Big 12. A little concern here going into the NCAA tournament, or if you're Coach Bratton, is this kind of what you want to motivate your team?
I think it's more of a motivation because
obviously you don't want to lose the Big 12,
right? And you don't want to lose, to in-state rival OU, but at the same time, OU is a reigning champs. I mean, they're super good. So, and so is our men's team. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I think if anything, yeah, it's motivation. It's kind of that, okay, you know what? They got the best of us at the Big 12. Now it's time to show, we're going to be here. It's coming to our home. It's kind of time to show. But yeah, I think it's more just, it's kind of a chip on the shoulder. Hey, you know what? OU got away from us this time. It's not going to happen again.
So again, now there hasn't been a poll since April 20th. That was when Oklahoma State was the unanimous number one team in the country. I tend to think that probably won't be the case heading in unanimous number one heading into the national championship, but they still could be the number one team in the country. By the way, I believe, is it this Saturday, the 7th, or Sunday? Is this the first airing of the Ricky documentary?
Yes, I believe it.
I can look that up real quick, but I believe it was the 7/14/21, and then into June was the finale on NBC. And again, you have to be excited. Coach Bratton said it. If you can't get excited to play the Big 12 championship, to play the NCAA championship alone, you got something wrong with you. And now you have this surrounding you. You have this opportunity in front of you, an opportunity to make it really, really special for this team and for this program to have this docuseries air. If you can beat Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Vandy, these good teams at the top of that you're going to be competing against on the last day of the national championship. If you can beat all those teams, have this documentary air, it's going to be huge. And look, I realize this is already one of probably the premier golf program in the country. So I understand that. I'm just saying, this could even vault you, cement your place even more at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and to add to that, I did just look it up. It is May 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. So that's when they're
Golf
premiering.
Channel, DVR it. I don't know when on the 7th it'll be aired, but that's really exciting if you're the men's golf team. Women's golf, I believe, also headed to the NCAA championships. I'm not sure if
they actually have their regionals starting on Monday.
Okay, so there you go. Regionals starting on Monday, so we'll see if they're able to make it and play also at the home course, because again, both men's and women's, 17th through the 23rd, the week before, is the women's golf championships. All right. Any other orange sports you wanted to get to, Chris? Anything about the spring game you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, I from what I heard, anyways, the team looks pretty good. Justice Hill obviously is coming back, and we talked to with the wide receiving core, and it's safe to say the biggest question is how does Taylor Cornelius do? I know he's right now projected starter, but I think it'll be good. I do also want to give a shout out, I guess, to the job Coach Boynton has been doing with recruiting. I know he seems to be landing recruits left and right now. Slowly but surely, which is cool to see.
Yeah, again, the way he coaches, the way his presence on social media, his presence, I'm sure, in these recruits' homes is so powerful, so impactful. Like people were saying, if you're having a transfer, you're having recruits' parents, that one of their transfer guys wanted to go somewhere else. His mom said, no, you're going to play for this man, Mike Boynton. And if you're starting to get that kind of traction, I think it's a bright future for that program. All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk about Baker Mayfield next. We'll tell you why we're not OU fans, all right? We'll tell you why coming up next on the Border Battle on KXCY. Welcome back into Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building. You're listening to the Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXCY. Reopening some wounds, I think, for some OSU fans there. Baker Mayfield finding Dimitri Flowers, who beats Trey Flowers, the new Seattle Seahawks safety. For what it's worth, Seattle, that is the what just happened to your new safety back in Bedlam. Obviously, a very entertaining game. Oklahoma State right there at the end of it. And Baker, I would argue, while he was great in that game, made some plays that would probably concern a few people. And I think some of it got a little bit, some concerns for some people. But I will say this, Chris. There was a report that came out yesterday. Jack Mills, who is Baker Mayfield's agent, he was commenting on the Business of Sports with Andrew Brandt podcast. So Andrew Brandt, a big sports guy, a sports finance guy, and he was commenting on that podcast and says the Patriots were prepared to move up to number 2 with the Giants to draft Baker Mayfield if he slid past the Browns. Now, this is also added to a report from the same guy, Jack Mills, Baker Mayfield's agent. I would tend to say a pretty decent source when it comes to Baker Mayfield, that the Jets' number 1 quarterback on their board was not Sam Darnold, it was Baker Mayfield. Now, Sam Darnold slides to them. They obviously take him because you don't trade up and not select the quarterback. Do you believe these stories? Is this an agent just spewing agent talk, or is there real substance here?
Part of me feels it almost has to be real, but I honestly, part of me believes, especially with the Patriots' potential. See, the Patriots one is what really, I don't know, which I feel is kind of a trick thing. But at the same time, they know Brady's not going to, play forever. I don't know. It's a really, touchy thing. But I feel like if he's saying it, like, he's a credible source to me. I feel like they've got to be true.
Well, here's the interesting thing. You go back and you remember Baker said, I'm not falling out of the top 5. If he knew when he went and visited the Jets, this is the direct quote from Jack Mills, quote, when he visited the Jets, they pretty much said, you're our guy if you're there. That would then make sense why Baker said, hey, look, I'm not dropping out of the top 5. I guarantee you that. Because, Baker wants to be right, and Baker's cocky and arrogant. We know that, and that's what makes him great. But maybe he wasn't in this scenario. Maybe he knew the Jets. That was the bottom line. Maybe that was as far as he knew it was going to fall. And then all of a sudden the rumors come out about the Cleveland Browns, and now there's rumors about the New England Patriots. I think it's really interesting because, again, the Patriots were a team that would have had a quarterback board. They would have had a rankings list for their quarterbacks because, believe it or not, whether you want to believe it or not if you're a Patriots fan, Tom Brady is not going to live forever, and he's not going to play forever, and he's not going to be effective forever. So, if you're the Patriots, you have to start putting together QB boards. Every draft, who are you going to take? Maybe it's a first-round picks coming up here because you got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and you didn't get very much compensation for him. So now you got to figure out where you're going to go after this at quarterback. And so I believe that the New England Patriots were prepared to go get Baker Mayfield. Now, being prepared to go getting him, and then going and getting him are different things. They could have very well picked up the phone to the New York Giants and said, hey, what's your price? And they said, your 2 first rounds this year, your first round next year, and a 3rd round pick in 2020. They could have said that. And if you're the Patriots, you're probably saying, all right, well, Baker Mayfield's good. We have him as our top-ranked quarterback, but he's not worth 3 first rounds and a 3rd round.
Right.
So there's a difference, I want to stress that, between being prepared to go up and getting a guy, liking a guy, and then actually pulling the trigger on a deal, which obviously they didn't have to do because the Cleveland Browns selected him number 1.
Right, and I think if like Baker's a transcendent athlete, he's got the size, everything. Like if he's just that like Godson, like, oh, we don't know if we'll ever find another one of these, then maybe you make that choice if he drops past the first pick. But yeah, it's the same way. It's like Giants would have had a king's ransom they'd have been asking for someone to trade up to the second pick because the Giants are in just dire need of positional players as anyone else for like.
Not necessarily.
At least for like a running back to me, like.
But like, is a running back going to put you over the top?
No,
we're going to find out.
But you can make the same case for them with a quarterback. I mean, Eli's maybe only got a couple more years too.
Yeah, but it was pretty clear going into the draft that they weren't going to take one, right?
Right.
So I mean, you have that issue as well. So I just think it's very interesting about all of this that everyone right after the draft says, this was a Cleveland Browns move.
Yeah.
This was a Browns move. I don't necessarily think so. I'm not necessarily buying that because I think my opinion was that Baker, you look back 10, 15 years from now, Baker's going to be the best player to come out of this class from the quarterback position. Now, do I have him ranked as my number one quarterback? No. I had Josh Rosen as the most talented quarterback in the class, and I think Sam Darnold's right there as well. But if you have a losing franchise, do you not want someone with cocky arrogance of Baker Mayfield to turn it around? I thought out of all the quarterbacks in this class, the one who had the attitude to turn Cleveland around was Baker Mayfield. So I think it's interesting that everyone says this is a Browns pick, this is a Browns draft, which by the way, Denzel Ward, a generational type corner, in my opinion, and fills a need. So while I still would have gone Bradley Chubb, I don't call that a bust of a pick because I think we're going to see Denzel Ward. And by the way, they're atrocious secondary. They let Brett Hundley carve them up last year. So, I mean, you can make it another Browns draft, but I think they got a lot of talent. You get Nick Chubb, you get a good offensive lineman in the second round. I think it's going to be fun to watch the Cleveland Browns this year.
Right.
As crazy as it is to say that.
Oh, for sure. Now I want to ask you
Please.
A couple questions here. Out of all the picks the Packers did, who intrigues you? But before you choose, just in case anyone's wondering who they all were, I'm just going to list them all off. So you have Jair Alexander, Josh Jackson, both cornerbacks. You have linebacker Oren Burks. You have Jamon Moore, wide receiver, offensive line Cole Madison, punter J.K. Scott. You have two more wide receivers in Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Equanimous St. Brown.
Equanimous St. Brown.
Oh, thank you. Defensive line James Looney. You got Hunter Bradley, long snapper, and then outside linebacker Kendall Donnerson. Which one kind of intrigues you or is most exciting?
First of all, they took a punter and a long snapper, so let's everyone get your laughs out at the Green Bay
and no
Packers.
Tight end. Like, don't get me wrong, I know you guys have Jimmy Graham, but I saw somewhere that there's like this comment of like, oh, there's no tight end they didn't like draft.
Yeah, there was a lot of people suggesting the Packers should take a tight end, but I mean, look, you're gonna be able to fill in that second tight end spot, and people need to realize, look at Packers tape. Look at the Packers since Aaron Rodgers has been there and Mike McCarthy's been there. It's 5 wide a lot of the time. And so the Packers don't utilize 2 tight end sets that much. They had Martellus Bennett and the other guy, I'm
Rodgers?
forgetting his name. No, not Richard Rodgers, although he was on the team as well. They had those 2 players, and they really didn't use 2 tight end sets that much. Kendricks was his name. But I think right now the most intriguing. So I like the 2 cornerbacks, obviously number 1 and 2, but they don't intrigue me. I know what they can do. The most intriguing is Equanimous St. Brown, because you're looking at a guy who, if he had a quarterback at Notre Dame, I think this guy would have been jumping in the second round. Teams would have been jumping for this guy. You look at his measurables. I'll pull it up here because I want to get it right. But you look at his measurables. He goes up and gets the ball. He gets 50-50 balls. Ask me your next question, and then I will let me see if I can find his measurables for you.
Okay, just because I know we have some Cowboys fans in here.
I got it. 6'5", 214. He's a monster. Wow. He's going to be able to go up and, like Dez Bryant, catch the ball in the corner of the end zone.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to you with kind of the Cowboys picks of who makes you kind of most intriguing. Is it, Leighton Vander Esch, Connor Williams, Michael Gallup, Dorrance Armstrong, Dalton Schultz, Mike White, Chris Harrington, Cedric Wilson, Bo Scarborough, or free agent or not undrafted pickup DeQuinton Osborne?
It's not DeQuinton Osborne, although, good for him. You mentioned a couple guys there. I know before the show today I said Bo Scarborough is really intriguing because a lot of people talking about the tread on his tires. That doesn't concern me. He's not going to be the bell cow in Dallas, and he won't be during his entire career. If he becomes a stud, you're not getting rid of Zeke to keep Bo Scarborough. So if he becomes a stud, you use him as trade bait, essentially, is what it's going to be. This guy is not going to see the field a ton. And when he does, he's going to run like a bull in a china shop. This dude you talk about power. This guy's got power. And if he had to carry the load, I would not be a fan. But you get him in the 7th round to be a situational running back. I love it. Michael Gallup is going to be a star in this league. Now, you can make the argument, will he be a star with Dak Prescott? I understand that argument. This guy, he's a really underrated wide receiver, and I think they got him in the 4th round.
Yeah, and I do want to add quick because it was like a poll thing is where I found this. The favorite so far for the Cowboys, the draft pick, was Connor Williams, and that's a 51%.
Again, you could be looking at a first-round talent that you get in the 2nd round, and positional versatility. He can play guard, he can play right tackle, and for that Cowboys line, which was worse this year, you have to like that as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be breaking down the Major League Baseball talk, including how much trouble are the Los Angeles Dodgers in. That's next. Border Battle KXCY.
Against Kansas in that win, 12 threes made. Against OU, 9 threes made. Against Baylor, both times they played them, 5 threes.
Falling into this role, I kind of like it. Just any chance I get to throw for this team, I go out there and help them out in any way possible. I love to do that for them.
Is it disappointing for this team to know that they could potentially, if given the opportunity, have success in March, but the thing is it's looking less and less like they're actually going to get there?
I mean, you're dealing with one right now, the premier softball program in the nation in Oklahoma.
Man, that is a fun swing to watch. Welcome back in here to Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building at Oklahoma State University. You're listening to the Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXCY, streaming not live, but it'll still be streaming as if it's live from 11 to noon on Suddenlink Channel 112, YouTube Live, Border Battle on demand. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/Border Battle Show, twitter.com/Border Battle OSU. Chris, you saw that swing a couple times. Couple 2-3 times there in the Twins series,
man.
including some Didi Gregorius history. But this Yankees offense is scary. Justin Verlander yesterday throws 14 strikeouts, strikes out 14 Yankee batters, comes out of the game. Ken Giles gives up 4 runs in the 9th inning, and they lose. Did you see this series as a preview for the ALCS?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it'd be a rematch, right?
Yeah, I
Correct
would have
me
to
if I'm
check.
wrong, but I believe
pretty
that. I think it's safe to say now, especially now that everyone seems to slowly, especially the whole Yankees team is slowly, now they're getting on a roll, which you could also say is also a scary thing considering like the power and the people they have on the roster. But yeah, I think so. I mean, you can make a case for potentially the Red Sox if they can keep it up. I mean, even the Angels in a sense. The Angels, I'm not as comfortable, but I think the Red Sox can be added right into that mix.
Yeah, Angels are a team that at the very best will be a wild card team because unfortunately they don't have the pitching that Houston does, so I don't see them winning that division. Much like, the Twins offensively, if they get it going, I think could be a wild card team, but I don't think they have the pitching that Cleveland does in order to win that division outright.
well, you also need someone that can close out games, and we don't have that with Fernando Rodney.
Yeah, you also need that. Detroit Tigers also. I mean, that's just not a good division right now. 15-13 is leading it. You look at any other division, that would be, in the AL, every other division, that's fourth place for the Cleveland Indians. But you know what? Good for them. The Central sucks, and they'll probably reap the benefits for it this year. Also, Corey Kluber pitching really well. He could win the Cy Young for the Cleveland Indians. But I want to say about the Red Sox started off like a ball of fire. They were like 18-2. And to the Yankees' credit, they didn't start out well. They're now 19-10, 2 games back of the Boston Red Sox. So if you're telling me going into May, this team would be 2 back of the Red Sox, I think the Yankees could still win this division as much as we all hate it because it's the Yankees. We deserve a Yankees-Houston Astros series, in my opinion, because I'm not sold on the Yankees starting pitching. I'm not sold on the Houston Astros closing pitching, relief, bullpen work. I'm not sold on the Houston Astros offensively. They don't have it down yet. Now, do they have the talent? Yes, they have Bregman, Correa, Altuve. They have the pieces. Marwin Gonzalez has been awful to start this year. They have the pieces, but they haven't been in a groove yet. And to win 20 games so far really says a lot about their starting pitching.
Well, not only that, I think it's safe to say I don't think people thought the Red Sox would have the record that they do right now either.
I don't think so.
With the new management and everything, and granted, they were 93-69 last year, which is it's good that and the Yankees were 91-71. So I think it's going to be kind of that rematch thing of it's going to be a neck and neck. It's going to come down to the last series, I think, with them. Last month of baseball for them, which is good though. That's what makes the rivalry so great is that most of the time these teams are neck and neck and they're even. Like when you can have 2 teams in the same division that it's always an all out, it's a slugfest. That's what you want to see, especially in baseball.
No doubt about it. I want to get to NL real quick. I'm going to give you 2 teams who's in more trouble. The Washington Nationals, they're 14-16, 4.5 games back of the New York Mets, and Atlanta Braves also right there in second place in the East. Or the Los Angeles Dodgers, 12-17, 9 games behind the 21-8 Arizona Diamondbacks.
I like to add in the Milwaukee Brewers. No, just kidding.
They are tied for the division lead.
Honestly,
I'm also concerned.
No, obviously it's the Dodgers. To me, like the Nationals have talent. Don't get me wrong with Scherzer and Bryce Harper, but Strasburg, but. Like that's it. Like that's
Anthony Rendon. They got a bunch. They've got,
but to me, like the Dodgers have like a vaunted death lineup 1 through 9.
You think so? I'm not really scared of them offensively.
Well, here's the thing: is Turner back yet, or is Turner still
I'm not
out?
sure. But again, they just had Corey Seager go on the disabled list. He's having Tommy John surgery.
Yeah,
so he's out for the year,
which is crazy because he's a shortstop,
not pitcher.
And then goes through Tommy John.
He had a couple of throws last weekend that he said should not have gotten away from him. That did. And he said he knew at that point he had to go get checked out. He got checked out, and the stability's not there, so he has to have Tommy John surgery. I'm with you. It's the Dodgers. The Dodgers lineup really just – it doesn't scare me like it should. And I don't know if it's because of injuries, and that's obviously going to play into the narrative. But, I mean, if you're the Washington Nationals, you're 4.5 games back of the Mets and the Braves. Did anyone expect this from the Mets and the Braves? Do we really expect Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna, 2 rookies for the Atlanta Braves, or 2 young players? I don't know if Albies is a rookie. I believe he is. But 2 young players, do we really expect them to continue on the tear that they're on? I don't necessarily know if I do. So 4.5 games back of the Mets and the Braves is a lot less than the Arizona Diamondbacks, being 9 back of them. And by the way, the Colorado Rockies with Blackmon and I'm forgetting the other. Their Story, their shortstop. You look at them, and their third baseman as well is really good. That I'm blanking out on his name as well. 6 games back of them as well. So you're playing against better competition in the West than the Washington Nationals are in the East, and you're further back. I think the Arizona Diamondbacks win this division.
Yeah, and especially at this rate, the way you can have your star pitcher in Clayton Kershaw do well. And yet you can't supply him any runs. Like we talked about when they first started, right? First years against the Giants. I mean, you lose 1-0. Like 1-0. That's like you expect. Like if you can get only 1 run given up by your stud pitcher, and he keeps you in the game the whole time, and you can't do anything to help him, like
Kershaw's
you're in
first
trouble.
Kershaw's first 4 games, he gave up 3 runs and did not record a win. He had a no decision in one that he left with a 0-0 game. So that's pretty pathetic if you're the Dodgers offense. And again, Arizona Diamondbacks, we were talking about, remember we talked about heading into the season, I said my concern was who's going to be the next pitcher. Zach Godley's pitched really well this year, and then Patrick Corbin, or I think it's Patrick Corbin. Corbin is his last name. He has been phenomenal. He has been awesome this year. So I mean, you're looking at, but again, Washington Nationals same way. They're 6-1 in Scherzer starts, and they've only won 14 games. So you got to turn it on when your other players are pitching.
I want to ask you, with Seager only being 24, having Tommy John surgery for his position, shortstop, which is kind of it's uncommon for sure. Is that something that's maybe a concern now? He's an up and coming star. To have Tommy John so young, is it something that maybe they would do like a positional change? Maybe granted, it helps that he's not third base, because obviously third base is where you need to have the most arm strength.
I think you leave him at shortstop because of his range, right? Because he can get to he can get to pretty much every hole that you need to cover at shortstop. So I think you'd probably leave him there, and you just hope that he rehabs well. It's obviously less concerning than if you were a pitcher. If you're a 24-year-old pitcher having Tommy John, you're looking at like your career taking another path. So he's still incredible at the plate. So I wouldn't worry as much.
Yeah, and I was going to add in, young pitchers having Tommy John. It's Liriano. When we had Francisco Liriano, Johan Santana was still with the Twins, and Liriano went down with Tommy John, and Liriano has not been the same since.
No, other than
he
the
one
perfect game that he had.
Yeah, and he was young. I forget how old he was at the time, but when you're that young, it can ruin you.
By the way, I do want to say this, Chris. You were talking about how you were concerned about. I want to find his statistics right now. You were talking about how concerned you were with Sean Manaea after throwing his no-hitter. After that, he let me see if I can find a game-by-game breakdown here. I can't find a game-by-game breakdown. Here we go. So after that Boston game, he threw 7 innings of 1-run 4-hit ball to the Houston Astros. This guy's for real. I'm telling you, man. That wasn't his only good game. He's now 4-2, I believe, on the season. Got a great ERA, just lacking run support again. 1.03 ERA. You should not be 4-2. You should be 5-1 at the very least. So this guy's throwing some good stuff for the Oakland Athletics. I want to talk about my Brewers because I'm selfish. Do you think the Brewers are good enough to win the NL Central? They go on an 8-9 game winning streak, and then get swept by the Cubs. Do you think that's going to be a recurring theme? Because I think they've lost like 6 out of 7 games against the Cubs so far.
Yeah, well, honestly, what concerns me more is their +7 run differential. Like, I know, obviously baseball is more of a game of, it's in a sense like golf. It's a game of inches, so to speak, of where one run games are, it can happen more often than getting blown out. So like having the Cubs with a +34, and then the Cardinals half game out at +26. Like, I mean, yes, run differential isn't such a big thing in baseball. Like, I understand that.
No, it's not.
But
well, here's my thing about it. You knew the Cubs offense was going to be great. You knew the Cardinals offense had a potential to be great. The Brewers offense, while yes, it should be better than last year, and it was great last year. They still have Kane and Yelich to get going yet. The reason I'm not concerned about +7 run differential, this is the best bullpen in the division. And it didn't look like they spent like it, and they probably didn't spend like it. You bring Josh Hader into the game. Josh Hader had a 2 2/3 inning save the other day. 8 outs he got, 8 of them strikeouts. First time that's ever happened in Major League history.
And a lot of fantasy points if
and
you
a
have
lot
on
of
your
fantasy
team.
points for me. Absolutely. But they have the best bullpen in the division. I firmly believe that. And that could come down to being a big thing. Now, here's the problem. If your starting pitching can't hold Chicago off the board like they weren't able to, then you're going to be in problem. You're going to have issues. But, I mean, look at the Cubs series. It wasn't pitching that did you in. You lost the series combined 9-2. 4 games and you give up 9 runs to the Chicago Cubs, that's less than 2 a game. You have to win that series. That's just the bottom line of it. So I'm a little concerned that maybe they need to get the Cubs thing off their back. But I will say this. In the past, they've dominated the Cubs. Won like 60%, 60, 70% of the games against the Cubs, but can't beat the Cardinals in the rest of the division and can't beat the cupcakes that they play on their schedule. So, in my opinion, I would rather lose every game against the Cubs. Now, you don't want to, but I would rather have that and winning the games you should win than beating the Cubs and then losing to the Miami Marlins. They swept the Marlins this year. The Brewers team of the past would have lost to the Marlins. So I would rather have that. Am I crazy?
No, a question that keeps coming to my head is, the Cubs are good, but are they really as good as they were a few years ago? To me, it's 16 and 11. I know it's still early, but I don't know. I feel like they should be in single digits in the loss column right now.
Well, your concern if you're a Cubs fan is the lack of production from Yu Darvish and Jose Quintana. Those two have just not been good enough. And Quintana finally they both threw quality starts against the Brewers, of course, because that's how baseball works. And if they can pitch well, this team is going to be, I would say, the favorites in the NL. Because their order 1 to 9 scares me more than both the Nationals and the Dodgers. If they're hitting well, Schwarber's hitting well, Baez has hit really well this year, I think they just have too much offensively. What are your thoughts on that real quick?
No, yeah, that's it. And then for what you're paying Darvish too, if you're going to give $126 million over 6 years, I mean that you were playing with someone else's money at that point.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to be throwing as starting pitcher who's not performing real well for my fantasy team either. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. Steph's back. We're previewing the rest of the NBA playoffs. That's next. Border Battle KXCY.
What is arts and sciences?
We aren't all about the arts.
We like to think of ourselves as explorers.
From exploring the human mind
to discerning the building blocks of the universe.
We don't just read books.
We don't just sit in the classroom.
And we don't just solve problems.
We seek to give everyone a voice.
In a variety of approaches.
We tackle the big issues.
By understanding complex social structures.
And even understand the small ones.
We take passions to new heights.
But stay grounded.
We tell stories.
Of the past. Of the present.
And work to predict the future.
We like to think with a little preparation. Some dirt under the fingernails.
And some self-analysis. You can do anything.
With nearly 100 degree plans to choose from.
Where will your arts and science degree take you?
Connect, achieve, succeed.
To our neighbors and friends, we come to you today to let you know what's on our hearts. Because you're the reason what we do is so much more meaningful than a job. The reason we believe in the power of investing in tomorrow and the power of community. So this is simply thank you. As we step boldly into a time of growth and change, consider this our promise that every investment in our hospital is an investment in our communities.
This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.
Welcome back into Studio 318 here in the Paul Miller Journalism Building. You're listening to the Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXCY. He just wants to win, Chris. He just wants to win. LeBron James, the GOAT. The GOAT. Don't at me, but there's my Twitter handle if you want to. This is the Border Battle with King and CJ on OSU Student Radio KXCY. Streaming live on Suddenlink Channel 112, YouTube Live, Border Battle On Demand, Facebook.com/Border Battle Show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, Twitter.com/Border Battle OSU. I'm King from Wisconsin. He's from CJ. He's from Minnesota. His name is CJ. We like to fight. That's how you get Border Battle. just our jumping off point. We don't just talk about Minnesota and Wisconsin sports. But if you've been listening, which we appreciate over the course of the semester, you know that. So, Chris, we're going to talk about the NBA, again, preview the rest of the NBA playoffs, because we probably won't get to talk about it on Friday. So, these two series, we'll start in the East. These two series in the East, give me your gut reaction, winners of the series, and then we'll get into kind of breaking them down.
Oh, man, so we're going to start in the East. Cleveland, Toronto, and Boston, and Philly. What I think that, I hate to say it, like Cleveland's probably going to win this series, but
why do you hate to say that?
Because I want Toronto to win. I really do. Like, I'm gonna get this out of my chest. I'm a LeBron hater, just because all he does is win. Okay, I just want someone else to get to the promised land. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think LeBron is a phenomenal player. I'd be stupid to say he isn't. But no, I don't know. I think it's gonna be the Cavs, and then I think it will be the gritty Celtics that are gonna get there. But the thing is, what makes me nervous is if the Cavs get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's potentially a cakewalk, depending on especially if they get this Celtics. I think if they get Celtics, or like the 76ers pose a little more of like a challenge because of Joel Embiid, but I don't know if the Celtics take out the 76ers and Cleveland wins, I don't see the Celtics beating the Cavs.
Yeah, I would be more confident if I were the Cavs to beat the Celtics. But again, at this point, beggars can't be choosers. You just want to get to the next round. And to your point, I think they are playing probably the best team right now in the Eastern Conference, in the Toronto Raptors. And the Raptors don't look like they even want to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, because they had chances down the stretch there, and they couldn't do it. By the way, a lot of that LeBron stuff went in one year and out the other with me, so I don't know what you just said.
That's okay.
The GOAT. You just got to appreciate the greatness, Chris. That's what it is. This series, does Tristan Thompson have to play? Does Tristan Thompson have to start? Because that's a narrative that came out of Game 1, because Valanciunas, I believe it was, had 19 points and 16 boards. I believe that was heading into the fourth quarter, and he wasn't effective after that because they brought in Tristan Thompson. All of the negatives that you can say about Tristan Thompson, is he a guy that you have to play and start in the series?
Honestly, I don't know if you do, though, because in the end, if I'm the Cavs, I don't want Lowry or DeRozan to beat me. If Valanciunas can go off for 25, 30 points, and don't get me wrong, Valanciunas is a great player. Like he's kind of the last half of the big three, I guess, for Lowry and DeRozan. But I mean, I don't know if he needs to start. But I mean, I guess my thing is, like, could you put Nance Jr. there instead of Thompson is, yes, he's got more size than Larry Nance does, which is where you need it with Valanciunas, because Valanciunas is a bigger guy. But I don't know. I'm going to say no.
Here's the thing, though. If you start Tristan Thompson, are you sacrificing defense on the other two, on Lowry and DeRozan? I don't think you are.
No. Okay, so I guess the way I'm seeing it is more from an offensive thing. Like, Tristan Thompson is nothing compared to
you talked about
like
letting those two beat you, or
right,
beating you, right? So like you would sacrifice the defensive deficiency in the post to have a better offense.
I would.
I think that's interesting because honestly, I don't think you're going to stop Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. I think they're going to get theirs.
Like, they'll get theirs, but if they play like they did towards the end of regulation and overtime, because that's the thing with the Raptors, which is always so confusing, is like, you can tell the pressure is so high for them, especially when they're in Toronto, especially, this whole, like, you guys are number one seed, you guys have to get to the final, at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. Basically the NBA Finals is, if you don't get there, it's not good enough right now. And that's like how they play, is like this pressure keeps looming, and then you're playing against LeBron, and LeBron will do whatever he has to because he's LeBron. So, I think that's part of the thing too, is they just become shells of themselves towards the end of these close games.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, DeMar DeRozan was way too passive. I heard someone say it last night, and they're absolutely correct. He made the correct basketball play. kicking it out to what's his name from Wichita State,
Van Fleet.
Van Vliet. Right basketball play, correct basketball play. Find the open guy who can shoot threes. You don't do that in the playoffs. Not against LeBron James in the playoffs. You take that shot. You're the best player on this team. Not Kyle Lowry, not Serge Ibaka, not Valanciunas. It's you. If you're DeMar DeRozan, you have to take that shot. You're the best one of the best 2-point shooters I've ever seen. Like Carmelo Anthony, good. Or like Carmelo early in his career, that's how good DeMar DeRozan is. He's not good at shooting threes, which I think caps him a little bit as far as a player. But I think he's one of the better 2-point shooters in the game. He has to be taking those shots down the stretch.
And I think it's safe to add, I don't know if there's a legit leader on this Raptors team. Like kind of that takeover killers mentality in a sense of okay, you know what? It's time to take over. Like you said, with DeMar especially. Yeah. Like, I mean, DeMar is better than Kyle Lowry.
I think so.
I think it's safe to say. And so, yeah, at that point, if you're his teammates, the DeRozans, you got to be like, DeMar, this is your time. Like take over, do what you have to do. Like we're obviously like, yes, you want to keep everyone involved, but at the same point, I think part of it's like a mental thing is, it's an overthinking thing because then he gets passive.
Well, and that's what the whole thing about it is if you have these two, you shouldn't have to have pressure. There shouldn't be any pressure for you because it should be simple enough. Either one of you scores. By the way, LeBron, a triple-double. We won't talk about the Boston 76ers series. If we have time Friday, we'll touch on that. I want to get to the Western Conference. Pelicans, Warriors. Warriors move up 2-0 in that series. And then Houston 1-0 at Utah. Which series intrigues you more? 25-15 from Anthony Davis, by the way, last night for New Orleans in the loss. Which intrigues you more?
Golden State, New Orleans.
Why?
Just because it's more entertaining. It's more of a battle. Like, New Orleans and Golden State, they're running each other. Basically, it's a race of who can run each other off the court. Is really, don't get me wrong, Houston and Utah can kind of play that pace. Houston to me is a little slower of a pace, depending on
Depends. They can score with the best of them.
I guess Utah would be just Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell plays like a madman sometimes.
Yeah.
Kind of that Russell Westbrook style in a sense. But I don't know. That intrigues me more. Honestly, I think the Houston-Utah series is potentially over already. I know it's super early. I don't see Utah being able to go against this 3-4-headed monster that is the Rockets.
No, if you're the Rockets, you're thrilled that three didn't get called, that foul didn't get called, and that the Thunder get knocked out because that's a worse matchup. And I'm not saying the Thunder would have won the series. I'm just saying it would have been a more entertaining series. So unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles in that one. But I think you're right. I think that series is probably already over. I want to read off the stat lines from the starters for the New Orleans Pelicans last night. Mirotic, 18 points, 9 rebounds. Davis, 25-15. Etuan Moore, 14 points. Rajon Rondo, 22 and 12 assists, 7 boards. Drew Holiday, 8 assists, 8 boards, 24 points. And they lose. They lose that game. This is why I think this series is over. That's as good as you're going to play on the road. The very best you're going to play on the road, you just did. And Golden State beat you with Steph Curry coming off the bench playing 27 minutes. I think it's over. I really do.
No, I honestly, I was thinking the same thing. I think it also shows how much now is a series where you could actually use Boogie Cousins. Like, yep. I get it. It's two big guys on the floor. It's not something you see very much anymore. But it shows Boogie's worth against a team like this. The Trailblazers, you didn't need Boogie Cousins. Here, like you said, when you can have all 5 guys in double figures, but you can also put a little bit on. They don't have anyone on their bench for the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if Drew Holiday doesn't go out for 40 and Davis doesn't go out for 40, the Pelicans don't really, have someone that can also, Mirotic here and there.
I mean, you don't need any more points though. 116
no,
should be
right,
enough,
yeah, and
right?
you still lose by 5.
Exactly. That's what my point is. Scoring 116 points should be enough. And it wasn't in this game. And like I said, Steph only plays 27 minutes, still gets up 15 shots, 5 of 10 from 3, got to the line 7 times. Golden State just survived a 4 of 20 shooting night from Klay Thompson. That's how lopsided this series is.
I saying you still won by 5.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm concerned, obviously, if I'm a New Orleans Pelicans fan. But again, you've already done more than you were supposed to. You beat the living snot out of the Portland Trail Blazers, and they never had a chance in that series. And I don't think Portland would have had a chance in this series either. So I think if we can get games like we got last night, at the very least, even if it's a sweep, at the very least, it's going to be an entertaining series.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say, I kind of a little bit off the cusp. This time of year is kind of my favorite. A school's getting out. You got the playoffs. WNBA preseason starts Sunday. My Lynx, I'm super stoked. They're playing the Washington Mystics. I mean, I'm ecstatic, man.
Hey, whatever it takes to get a title to Minnesota, even if you got to invent sports to do it.
And real quick, shout out to Logan L., our floor director, for his last show today as well.
Appreciate
so
you.
Thank you for doing everything you've done.
Yeah, and we will thank the rest of our crew on Friday. We appreciate all of our crew as always. Thank you so much for joining us this Wednesday. We're going to be looking back all day Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. A preview or a review of what we've done this semester, everything we're proud of on the Border Battle. Thank you so much for the great crew. For CJ, I'm King. Thank you so much for listening to the Border Battle on OSU Student Radio, KXCY.